So in today's discussion, we're going to look at human rights. We're going to look at human rights, which is of course in relation to a question, a past paper question, which we're going to answer. So we have here saying protection of human rights defenders at the national level must defend what? Human rights. So what are these human rights? So before we define what they are, the question we're looking at is here. So part A says to describe characteristics of human rights. Then part B says explain categories of what? Human rights. Okay, so what are human rights? So human rights are the rights that all people have by virtue of being human. So by the virtue of you being a human being, you have what? These rights. By the virtue of us just being human, we have what? We have these rights. So human rights are derived from what? From the inherent dignity of the human person and are defined internationally, nationally, locally by various law making bodies. So we see that they are inherent dignity, meaning that you have them by virtue of you being born. And these are upheld internationally, nationally, and locally. So wherever you're going to go, in short, they are universal. Wherever you're going to go, these human rights are going to be to be upheld. Okay. Then we're saying another definition of human rights is is defined as the supreme inherent and inalienable rights to life, to dignity, and to self-development. It is concerned with issues in both areas of civil and political rights and economic, social, and cultural rights founded on the internationally accepted human rights obligation. So these human rights, which are inherent, meaning we are born with them, inalienable, they cannot be taken away from us, and it is concerned with our social being, our political and economic also. So it touches what aspects of civil rights, political rights, economic rights, social rights, and cultural rights, which we'll look at further on as we are going. So according to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, that is of 1948, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights of 1948, it states which ones are human rights. And of course, it has about 30 rights which are considered to be human rights. And these rights are inscribed to everyone as long as you are you are a human being. Okay, so now let's answer the question that we have. Of course, we explain some things that are here as characteristics of human rights and some that are not listed, but we just explain them. Okay, so now human rights have characteristics. For us to identify which ones are human rights, we must know their characteristics. And first of all, we're saying that human rights are universal. So what this means is, it means that human rights apply to all human beings everywhere, regardless of the nationality, regardless of the gender, regardless of the race, religion, or social status. So human rights are universal, meaning despite you being black, being white, being Indian, being Muslim, being female, being male, being tall, being short, they apply to everyone. They are universal. Then the other one we're saying, which is not here, is human rights are inherent, which I think in the definition we already did mention. Human rights are inherent. This means that human rights are inborn. They are inborn. This is they are inborn. Human rights are inborn, meaning people are entitled to them simply because they are human. not because they are granted by the state. So these human rights are inherent, meaning simply because you are human, you have the rights. You are they're inborn. By the virtue of you being born and being on earth, you have these human rights. Then another one, which is here, is saying human rights cannot be taken away from you. Another word that this here we use is inalienable. Inalienable. Human rights are inalienable. So human rights are inalienable. This means that human rights cannot be taken away. They cannot be surrendered or transferred, except in very limited circumstances. But what we're saying and overall is that human rights cannot be taken away from us. By virtue of being human, you have these human rights. They are yours. They can't be taken away from you. Then the other one is saying human rights are equal and indivisible. Human rights are equal and indivisible. So this means that all human rights are equally important. There's no human right which is above the other. Every one of these are equal and indivisible. So the right to life is so much important as the right to the right to be free from discrimination, because we see that they affect us in all aspects. Every human right is important. You cannot do without the other one. Every one of it is important. So they are all equal. Then we are saying that human rights are independent and interrelated. They are independent, and interrelated. Interrelated. So what this means is the enjoyment of one right often depends on the fulfillment of the other right. For example, the right to education supports the right to work. That's why we're saying they are interrelated. So they are independent in that you receive that right, yes, but then they're interrelated in that one right, when you have one right, it's going to support the other right. The same way, if you're educated, meaning that, okay, because you being educated, you can get a job or you can be able to work, meaning that your right to work is going to be granted, or is going to be fulfilled. That is that's why we're saying they're independent and interrelated. Then the other thing is they are legally protected. As you can see here, they're legally protected, meaning human rights are protected by the national constitutions, laws, and international treaties. So by the constitution of the land, which we know that is the supreme law of the land, there's no law above it. These constitutions of the land, they support human rights, and they are legally they are protected by these human rights are protected by the law, meaning that you cannot do anything. You cannot break somebody's human rights or take away their rights and expect the state to remain quiet. No, they will take legal action against you. Then the other one is we're saying that they're obligatory, meaning governments have a duty to respect, protect, and fulfill human rights. This is the oblique state and state actors, which we're saying that they're obligatory. Government have a duty to respect, to protect, and to fulfill these human rights. Another one which we can say is that it protects individuals and groups, because of us belonging to different ethnic groups. Despite that, our rights are still upheld, meaning that we still be protected. Another thing is they are fundamental, they are basic, meaning human rights are basic, essential for human dignity, freedom, and development. We need these human rights for us to have freedom, and for us to have development. These human rights are needed. Okay, so these are just the characteristics of human rights. So this is how you'd explain one of them. So as you write your prose or as you write your essay, you've defined what human rights are and then say the following being the characteristics, then you begin. So per paragraph, you explain what? You explain one characteristic. If you say universal, then you say, what does it mean when we say that a right is what? Is universal. So you explain that this right indeed is what is for everyone, regardless of your nationality, regardless of your age, of your gender, of your religion status. You have this right, and you do the same for what? For the rest. Okay. Now let's go into answering the second part of the question. So the second part of the question tells us to explain categories of what? Human rights. So these human rights are what? Are in categories. And then, so number one is, so they're saying five what human rights, the categories, which we're saying number one, the civil. So the civil rights, so the right to be treated as an equal to anyone else in what? In society. The right to be treated as an equal to anybody else in what? In society. So these protect individual freedoms and what? And their personal security. So they protect our individual freedoms and what? And personal security. So we have the right to be treated as equal to anyone else in what? In society. Then we have political rights. So political rights, the right to vote, to freedom of speech, and to obtain what? To obtain information. So these allow individuals to participate in government and public affairs. So what is happening in the country, we are allowed to participate. If it means to vote, we are allowed to vote. If it means to air out your views, you're allowed to air out your views because you have you have those political rights. Then another one saying is the economic rights. So the right to participate in an economy that benefits all and to be what? And to desirable work. So to participate in the economy that benefits all and to have what? To have desirable work. So this is related to what? To employment and economic well-being. Employment and what? And economic well-being. Then we have the social rights. So the right to education, healthcare, food, clothing, shelter, and social security. So we see that these ensure access to basic social services necessary for what? For a decent standard of what? Of living. For our social what? So basic social services. It means if I have to have health care, to eat, I have a right to go into any store to go and buy food that I may eat. I have a right to shelter. I have a right to what? I have a right to learn and to be educated. Then lastly here we're saying culture, what? Culture rights. So the rights to freedom of religion, to speak the language, and to practice the culture of one's what? One's choice. So these protect the rights to participate in cultural life and preserve what? Cultural identity. So these help us to preserve what? Our cultural identity. So you have a right from where you come from, your tribe and all that, and to speak the language that you choose to speak. If you want to be Tonga, speak Tonga. If you want to speak French, like you have that right to what? To do so. Now, let's just look at some of these rights now, like specific now. When we talk of civil rights, so civil rights, some of these civil rights, we have the right to life. Nobody has the right to deny you the right to life. Then you have belief in what? In own religion. So you can believe in whatever you want to believe. You can be a Christian, you can believe in Hinduism, in Islam, whatever you so wish. The right to have an opinion. So on subject matters that are having, you have the right to think what you want to think. You have a right to express your views, your conscience. You have a right to free speech. That means you have a right to speak whatsoever you may want to speak, as long as it is law abiding. You have a right to non-discrimination according to to sex. You have a right not to be discriminated according to sex, whether you're male or female. So we have that what? Have that right. Then you have a right to marry. You have a right to marry, to start your own family, and like that. Right to cultural background and to a race. All those are what are some examples or some civil rights that we have. And then you have the political rights. Political rights. You have the right to vote in elections, either it be the general elections, it be um, elections that are involving the state and where we are required to vote as citizens. You have a right to fully participate in those elections. Then the other part is freely form and join a political party. So you have a right as a citizen, as a human being, to freely form. You can form a political party and also join one if you wish to join one. So to live in an independent country, you have that right. Then a standard for For public office. To stand, I mean, for public office. So you have the right to stand for public office. So it means if you have to run in any position in the in the country, maybe you want to run for presidency, you want to run for member of parliament, everyone has that right to do so. Then you have a right to freely disagree with views and policies of political leaders. Not everything that political leaders would bring would be okay. So you have a right to disagree, to say this is not right, and this is the way it should be according to the constitution. This is the way it is according to the laws. This is the way it is, and you have a right to have your view on these subjects also. So those are some of the political rights. Then we have a right to, some economic rights, saying rights to jobs. So you can get a job. You have a right to, as long as you qualify and those qualifications have been put about, you have a right to be offered a job. Work without exploitation, meaning you want to have, without you being put into harsh conditions or anything, you are free to work. A fair wage, meaning the proportion of what the work you're going to put in as you go to work, and the amount of money you're going to give in must be fair. So not you're working, you're putting in a lot of hours in a week and you're just getting a very low payment, very low, and which is not fair. You have a right to speak out because that's your right. You have to have a fair wage. Safe working conditions. It means where at your workplace you must be safe, away from from danger, away from any harm. You have you have that right. If you are in a place where it is not safe and not conducive in that workplace, you have a right to speak out to your boss. Say, I have this right that I must have be in a safe working place, even to the state, to speak out that. And if they continue, like maybe your boss continues to put you in such an environment, you are free to even report him because it's your right. Uh, Another one is to form trade unions that will speak on behalf of you as a worker. You are allowed to do that. You have a right to adequate food that is enough for you to eat, that you're able to be sustained. You have you have that right. It should not be denied. Protection against labor malpractices, that you have a right also too. Okay. And we have social rights. So social rights, we have rights to housing, meaning you have a right to to shelter, to have a house and proper house. You have rights to education, to learn. That when you acquire knowledge, you might you might use it to better not only yourself but the country also, or the place where you are. Right to health services. You have this right uh, of you being human. You have right to access health care services. You can go to to the hospital, to the for checkups when you're not when you're not feeling well. And you have right to recreation facilities where you're able to refresh, like go watch. You have a right in to go. Let's say Zambia is having or playing football in the Hero Stadium. You have a right to buy a ticket and go and watch. No one should deny you that access. to a clean environment. You have the right to live in a clean environment that is free from what? From disease. And you have a right to what? To social security. Then also, lastly, we look at some cultural rights, which is right to use your own language. You can speak your own language. Bemba, Tonga, whatever it is, you are able to watch, you have that right to speak. Then develop what cultural activities. You have that right, ancestral art domains, where you come from, you have that right to go and watch, to go and to know what that is. Develop own kind of schooling. You have that right to develop what your own type of learning that you would you want to take place in your art, in your life. So you have what you have that right, and you have a right to participate in what social cultural activities, depending on where you come from. But in fact, even you have a right to participate in other verses also cultural activities, as long as you are not going against the law. You have that right. So this is how you'd answer those two questions. And so when you're writing the second part on the categories, you write explain on the rights, and then you give these few examples that were saying that this right to this, right to that, like that, under each one of them, and then you'll be done. Okay, I don't know if there's any question, but we are done for today's class. Okay, see you in the next one.